Amend the agenda.
Do we have an agenda?
Yeah. It was sent out by,
Oh, I have,
I don't know if you
ever since, so I'm having a problem with my email. I'm struggling.
All right, time 7 o'clock. No one called the workshop meeting to order, to the fact that we have a quorum. Is there a need to amend the agenda?
I would like to discuss a couple of small CIP projects and see if we could maybe get them approved before waiting until December. And I have a request. I've been asked to make a request by the Hindel committee, so that has to do with CIP too.
All right, then.
I know I asked for a closed session afterwards for a couple topics too. I can't remember if that made the agenda or not.
All right. I guess we'll.
And do we want to talk about solar panels tonight, briefly tonight, to maybe give staff some instructions?
We can, but Taylor and I emailed on that yesterday that and put it officially on the November workshop. Is that right? I think they're pulling together what.
That's my only concern, is that we get stuff together by then so we can vote rather than just starting in November.
We can definitely.
What are those items that you want to speak about?
CIP and solar panel taxation. Residential.
Yeah, Hindel building.
The Hindel building and the library.
All right, can I have a motion to approve the agenda then with those 4 items added?
So moved.
Got a motion, further discussion on the motion. Not all those in favor, let it be known by the use sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it, the motion is carried. We got a couple presentations. Thank you all for coming. And we're going to try to get through this, I think, and can't wait to hear the presentations, by the way. I don't know about the rest of the stuff. So, Hillary, why don't you go ahead and introduce the
First 2 items on the agenda would be a workshop run by Rebecca Worley, who's the superintendent of the VDOT district. And the second one will be Mr. Wilkerson will be presenting parts of a plan, their planning process for the Parks and Recreation Department. So I see Ms. Worley is with us. It looks like she's muted. But if you can hear us, I think we're ready for you.
All right, Ms.
There she goes.
There she goes.
Hey, can everyone hear me?
Now we can.
Yes, now we can.
Okay, great. Thanks. Let me see if I can get my camera working. And I will share my screen with you all. So I just wanted to chat briefly about the secondary 6-year plan in Amelia County. So because of COVID restrictions and not being able to hold public hearings in the spring, VDOT waived the requirement to update the secondary 6-year plan before the fiscal year began on July 1st. But now that boards are kind of getting back into the routine of holding public hearings and taking care of that business, I thought I'd take the opportunity to kind of talk through what the secondary 6-year plan looks like currently, and we could discuss any revisions or project additions that you all would like to add to your plan. So I will share my screen. We can take a look at the current plan. Okay, are you all able to see that document?
No.
No? Okay.
We can see it.
Can't read it.
It may be a little small for us to read, but we can.
Oh,
it's
okay.
displayed.
Okay, so I'll just talk through it, and then if there are questions, I can, well, I can certainly share it with you all after the meeting as well. But so currently, Amelia County is receiving approximately $42,000 in telecommunications fees. So those are fees that the state receives for private utility companies that have facilities located within our right-of-ways in Amelia County. So just over $42,000 annually there. And in addition, there's a district unpaved road fund that each county receives based on the number of lane miles of unpaved roads that they have in their county. And so Amelia's, it's actually changed annually because you all have taken the opportunity to convert some of your gravel roads to rural rustic roads where we surface treat them. And so with each unpaved road that comes off the list, that unpaved road fund goes down in dollar amount that you receive annually. So over the course of the current 6-year plan, they've allocated around $471,000 to the unpaved road fund. So historically, Amelia County has traditionally used their secondary 6-year plan funds to fund rural rustic projects. So to knock out some of these gravel roads that you have in your county, you can use these state funds to fund projects, and our VDOT state forces will construct the road and turn it into a surface treated road. And we've done that at many locations throughout the county. Most recently, Selma Road, Route 657, was completed last year. The only project that is currently on your secondary 6-year plan is Route 640, Buckskin Creek Road, to be done as a rural rustic in the coming fiscal year. So we've got that on the schedule to be completed next summer. And after that, the remainder of the money is currently sitting in just a countywide engineering and surveying fund, which is just kind of a holding pot that then that money can be distributed out for future projects that you might choose to prioritize. So that's just kind of a general update on where we stand currently with the secondary 6-year plan. There are about $25,000 in that engineering and surveying fund currently, and then for future years, more funds would be allocated to that if you didn't choose to allocate it to another project. So with that, I also have a list of the unpaved roads in Amelia County if you wanted to use the funds for that purpose, or there's also other options, like some counties have used secondary 6-year plan for sign installations, for traffic calming, other things of that nature. So if you all have any projects or things in mind for that, I'd be happy to hear them. And we could look at setting up projects for those and getting the secondary 6-year plan updated in future months at other board meetings.
So you can email us that list of the current unpaved?
Absolutely. Yep. I could send you all that. I think it was a previous board member before any of you all joined had expressed interest in Route 621 Folks Bridge as a potential rural rustic project. So not saying that it's necessarily priority now, but that was one that we've gotten a question about within the last year or so.
Which district is that in?
Painful. So just the top one.
Yeah, it's probably.
How many roads are on the list?
It's about 15.
And you know the total mileage?
Yep, let me see. Looks like around 18 miles total.
Do you know the cost per mile to turn it to rural rustic?
We typically estimate $150,000 per mile, but that's dependent. We look at the road and see exactly what we have to do to bring it up to standards, but that's traditionally what we've been using for our estimates. So on
Is
some
the
of these other projects,
15 roads, 18 miles, does that still include Buckskin that you're planning to do, or is that already off the
it
list?
does. Yeah, it still includes Buckskin.
I think the
And that
majority, I
was-
looked at the list, the majority of them are dead end roads.
Are they private or public?
They're public state roads,
Up to a
but
point.
Mm,
Right, yeah.
mm. Maybe. All right, so the first time it's coming up since our term, but do you guys know, have we looked at like past like counts of how many residents live per one? I mean, what, have we had an idea of how we prioritize them in the past?
No, that might be a good one.
Yeah, Tommy and Carol always seem to be the two that were.
That was, yeah, they kind of love
roads.
it. Yeah.
I've never been involved in any of this in the past.
Yeah, and there is, for rural electric roads, there's a requirement that there's a certain number of homes on each of the roads for them to meet the requirement
I
to
think
be
that's, we're
resurfaced.
running into problems.
So there may be some of these roads that don't qualify for that. And when I send you all the list, I could kind of include a summary of our estimated homes that front it and whether they would qualify for the program as well.
Oh, that would be one,
Because if we could
that would be
eliminate,
great. Yeah.
That's about the way it's.
Yeah, then we can talk
That's about
about
how
it.
we just
Okay.
make the decisions, because we number four on the
Right.
houses on the road, homes on
Yeah.
the road. So
I don't know if you should have other things to use it. I don't know of anything else that's come up.
so you mentioned this as the secondary project. So does this completely eliminate projects on 360? Is that a totally separate?
Yeah, so the primary purpose for the secondary six-year plan is for secondary routes. It can be used on primary routes, but they assess like a penalty essentially if you use it on a primary route rather than a secondary. I think it's a small amount. It's not, if you had some project in mind on 360, I don't think it's anything that should prevent you from considering that, but they do assess a small penalty for using it on a road other than a secondary.
The reason I asked, we have a few, and some have been brought to my attention. I live on 360, so I see it, but we have a few, I would call them major secondary road intersections that lack turn lanes, such as Whitaker
Right.
Road.
Okay.
Citizens have brought it up, so I was just wondering how, if there's project money to add turn lanes to these intersections, or is that, could we pull from one to the other, or?
Yeah, they could, secondary six-year plan funds could certainly be used for something like that. If you're building a turn lane from a primary to a secondary road, it's basically considered an improvement to serve that secondary route. And so I don't think that the penalty would even be assessed for a circumstance like that. And if you have specific I wrote down Whitaker Road, but if there are others, we could work up a construction estimate. And if it's something that we could do with our own state forces, it's much more likely that you could cover the cost of something like that with your secondary six-year plan than if we had to contract it out. So
The two I know of is westbound 360 at Whitaker Road headed north.
okay, so right turn lane there.
Yes, right turn lane. Southern side already has one. And then Drunkard Road, westbound 360 at Drunkard Road. That's another high turn, high volume that we've had multiple accidents at, or near misses as well.
Okay.
That's in the Jetersville, western end of the county. And I'm sure there's more in between, but those are the two that have been brought up to me.
Okay.
One of those is going to
Yeah,
cost
we could-
as much as 3 miles of road, though.
that's right.
Well, last heard the turn lane was like $70-some thousand, I think. Do you know how much turn lanes?
It greatly depends on the area and the amount of grading we have to do.
Right.
We had one just recently in Powhatan that the estimate was $1 million because it involved utility relocation.
Well, yeah, I mean, 360 is pretty well shouldered out, so.
Right. Yeah. So something like that, I would imagine it would be less expensive, but we can take a look at those two locations specifically and work up an estimate for them.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Well, and then maybe also, I think it's a great idea Sean's bringing up, but look at options that we may, there's got to be some other kind of options, like if those are safety concerns, not just paving for quality of driving and life. And I would agree with him. I happen, as he knows, I live on one of them, and I would definitely agree it's a safety concern. Are there other funds that are available for that kind of thing that are more general upkeep and improvement without having to take the money from the secondary road funds?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So the secondary 6-year plan funds are just kind of the funds that you all have available already to prioritize. There's other funding sources that you could apply for in terms of projects. And so I've got like manuals assembled that have Board of Supervisors information, and they kind of outline all the possible funding sources for these projects and things like that. So while the secondary 6-year plan is more small dollar amounts for larger scale safety improvements and things like that, you could certainly apply for funding for something like that. And VDOT could assist in helping develop those applications if you all wanted to look into something there too.
Yeah, I would, my only other one on the list, and I don't see Junior here tonight, but would be possibly looking into a programmable traffic light at our school intersection. That would, every day we have a deputy that stands out there and directs traffic, but I have no idea what something like that costs. But if, there might be programs or grants available for specific projects like that.
You mean
Yeah, I don't know that we have anything like
Stoplight.
Sorry, I don't know that we have anything like a programmable signal in our inventory of types of signals or signs that we allow on our roadways. I could certainly check with our traffic engineering section on that. Typically, school zones are treated a little bit differently, and the schools themselves are responsible for the signage related to like reduced speed limits in school zones and things like that. So are you looking for a signal just to activate for those specific times of day?
Yeah. Like I know you see down in Hampton, you go to large venues, you'll see the police, they stand there right at the traffic. It's a regular traffic light during the day, and they can stand there and they override it. And then they can make it all green one way. Well, we have a deputy that does that every morning and every afternoon now. And I mean, worst case, we could use a regular light that only changed when needed, when the traffic pulled up from the secondary. But I mean, if that's an option, or if there's money available for something like that, it would
study options. Yeah.
On the other hand, there might be a reason as to why that person is bad. Directing traffic just happened to be one of his functions. It's a function.
Right.
That would have to be looked at, especially with the school system.
Well, yeah, it's a sheriff's employee. But
I mean, I'm talking about a state road, though.
Issue for that person. Yeah. Maybe worth it. That's a good idea, Sean. We're putting on a consideration list. Huh?
Yeah.
Can we get a list of those funding sources? Can you supply that?
I've got binders assembled for all of you that I can drop off at the county administration building.
All right, cool.
That's good.
VDOT has a Board of Supervisors manual, and it has all those funding sources listed in it. So I can provide that as well.
Thank you.
What's the time? When do you need answers back for the 6-year plan, and what specifically do you need for that?
Yeah, so because they kind of put a hold on it, there's no critical time frame on it.
Carries over
because you previously allocated Buckskin Creek, and it's not fully funded until July 2021 in the following fiscal year. There are no funds available like currently that are waiting to be allocated. It's just for future years. And typically we require the board to update their plan and budget annually. But that they provided some flexibility with that this year. So just you're not missing out on any funds that are currently available. So you've got some time to consider potential projects for future years at this point. And it would require, in order to make an amendment or a change to your secondary 6-year plan, it requires a public hearing to be held that's just advertised 2 weeks before your board meeting. The public hearing can be held at your board meeting and then a resolution is passed. So pretty straightforward process.
I know in the last 2 years, there's been at least one, if not two, women come to our board and want their roads
You're right.
turned to rural rustic. I don't remember who they were, but
Well, Laurette Tucker is one,
That's
and
right.
she's on the other end of Selma Road that does not have enough density
Okay.
to make,
That's right.
make it be paved. So I don't remember the other one, but she'll be here when she finds out that we're talking about adding new roads.
field trip.
Thank you.
All right.
Any
All
other
right,
questions?
Any other questions for Ms. Worley? Good information. Good information. Is there anything else to share with us?
Yeah, I'll drop off these binders probably tomorrow at the administration building, and I'll follow up with an email with the other information we discussed. So you'll have that available for you.
All right. Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank you.
very much.
What's up with the,
Thank
what's up
you.
with the 360 bridges, Rebecca?
They are doing the grading to do the crossover work. So they're currently targeting mid-November to late November to cross over traffic to one direction to start fully replacing one of the bridges. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate
All right,
it.
thanks.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Good information.
So, Mr.
Good
Wilkes,
information.
Parks and Recreation Department.
That was a lot of new information for me.
Good evening.
I know.
Good
Good evening. Wonderful to see you.
Yes, sir. So, yeah,
It's the opportunity.
We grabbed a couple.
you got one? We got copies special for
you
you. Use your color.
Okay.
Oh, well, I'm gonna turn it in and swap out to that then.
Sorry about that.
I don't think we can pay that.
He has,
I don't think they.
here, we're gonna swap out. I know, he said he's got some color versions here he's gonna swap with us for. So he's gone to the trouble preparing them. We're gonna use them. We swapped out to a different version.
Oh,
You got one, Wayne?
Yes. He said these have color, he
I'm sorry.
gave us color versions.
oh.
I think,
Sorry.
I think, yeah.
This isn't YouTube, right? Somebody asked me. It's recorded.
You have to share, but you have to, it's funny, you have to share it so that the recording gets it, yeah.
Audio streaming.
Can,
WebEx.
but can somebody, if they want to watch it, can they get access to the recording?
Not live, but it
No.
will be put up. Yes.
Yeah, on.
That's why we're recording, right? It's
Yeah.
not live.
Yeah, Sean's been posting them within 48 hours.
On the website?
Mhm. Yeah. Sorry, other Sean.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman
Good evening.
and board members.
Oh, yeah, something else.
As a director for Amelia County Parks and Rec, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to come before you and provide a 20-year plan and our mission and our vision statement. At the request of the Board of Supervisors, you asked us to form a committee to create a future plan for Amelia County Parks and Rec. This plan is for 2020, moving forward to 2040. You only asked us to create a 10-year plan. But the committee felt like the overall mission and the vision could only be accomplished within the 20-year plan. And with these things that we had in mind. One, minimizing the impact on taxing our citizens. Two, the availability of matching funds and grants. Three, acquiring property. Four, fundraising. And last, meeting our community needs. So I want to share with you this evening some programs that we're currently running, okay? And these are programs that we run on a regular basis, okay? The first is we run our winter basketball. The time frame is November to March. We run spring basketball, which runs from April to June. We run cheerleading twice a year, November to March and September to October. We run flag football, which is currently what we're doing now in place of our regular football because of the contact situation. You can't have contact, so we're doing flag football. And that's currently running from September to the end of the month of October. We have 3 seasons of soccer, which is indoor, outdoor, and fall soccer. Indoor soccer, we use the high school facilities for the months of January through March. And we actually, in indoor soccer, we have counties like Cumberland, Nottoway, they come and participate in our indoor soccer. Softball, we have 2 seasons. One, we have the Dixie girls softball, which is in the spring from March to June. We have a fall season, which is from September to November. We have youth volleyball also in the winter, which starts in December and ends in March. We have a summer league, which runs from July to August. We also have a wrestling league that runs from June to July. And we have one that runs from December to February. Summer camps. You look on here, as you may see, we use 8 ages from 3 to 18 on some of these, 4 to 18. The 18-year-old is on here because if they're still in school, we allow them to participate. And here's some of the camps that we run. We run a baseball camp. You see the ages 8 to 18. We run an intensive baseball camp, which is on the weekends, and that's 8 to 18. We run a basketball camp, two age groups, 6 to 12, and age 13 to 18. We will also run an individual girls basketball camp from 8 to 18. We have cheerleading, ages 4 to 18. And cheerleading, I need to just make a point. They had 2 seasons ago, we didn't run one this summer because of the COVID. We had 60 girls. We had 10 girls that came to our camp from Cumberland. So the need is there. We just have to put out the product and offer it to the public and people to participate. Mm-hmm. We have 2 seasons of football. One is flag, which we're currently running now. It says 4 to 6, but that's the age group. And then we have a minor JV and a varsity ages 7 to 14. We run a fun in the summer sun camp, and that's a camp we run for kind of like a daycare camp, and that's for ages 6 to 12. We have a pickleball camp. We also have pickleball courts in our gym. That's for ages 10 and up. We have a soccer camp, and that's ages 5 to 18. The instructor is our high school coach. We have a tennis camp, which is ran by Carter Carson from ages 8 to 18. And we have two volleyball camps that we've had, and that's ran by Crystal Holmes. And we also have a wrestling camp, which is ran for grades 3 to 12, and that's ran by Miss Green at the high school, who's at high school wrestling. The next one for programs, it's adult programs. We run an adult men's basketball. We just completed last month. We had 10 teams. We had teams come far as away as South Hill. We run church league basketball when we can get enough teams. We run a church league softball league. Normally we have anywhere from 4 to 6 teams in that. We run a co-ed softball team this past, even after the COVID, we had 7 teams in that. We had just finished our women's league last month. We started off with 4 teams and ended up with 3. And we have a women's volleyball league, and they have as many as 10 teams in their league sometimes. This go around, they only have 8.
Are these all free programs or are there fees?
No, there are fees related to it and according to what it is. If it's a camp that we run free, like running a free camp right now for basketball. And the purpose of the free camp that we're running currently is so we can get the numbers up so the kids can come participate. We run on Monday nights, which that one costs $20. We ran it starting in September each Monday night. The only Monday that we didn't do was this past Monday because it's a holiday. And then we were running one on Saturday mornings from 9 to 11. And that's free, just so the kids can come register. And by the time basketball season, we'll have all that information and we're able to put them on teams. Our last registration date is on November the 14th. And at that time, we'll have a team placement. But some of them are free and some of them aren't. It's a good question. Thank you. Operation since COVID. Amelia Parks and Recreation building was closed and all programs were suspended by County Board of Supervisors March 2020. Mid-June 2020, the county approved opening buildings and selected programs operating within COVID-19 guidelines with the approval of Kent Emerson, Amelia County Emergency Manager. So far, in all the activities we've had, there have been 2 players that had a false positive test of COVID. The players tested positive but had no COVID symptoms. One player participated in summer adult volleyball, the other in youth softball league. Both cases were reported to Kent Emerson following established Amelia County COVID policy procedures. Both players were quarantined for 14 days, and players on each team were notified according to county protocol. Okay, at this time, we're going to present the plan that you guys asked us to put together, and I'm going to introduce my committee chair, Ms. Christina Easter, and she will take the time to introduce the committee.
Absolutely. Thanks, Glenn. So my name is Christina Easter, for those of you I don't know, and I'm very excited to be here to talk today about the Parks and Rec plan and the opportunity to work together with the committee. I wanted to introduce, first and foremost, all of the folks that participated in this. It's a very involved group of parents that have varied levels of experience in interacting with Parks and Rec, or actually being part of Parks and Recreation organizations themselves. But this group, first and foremost, I think represents a lot of volunteer hours and a lot of people that have a lot of passion for our community and investing in our community. And so I would love to just have folks kind of raise their hand as I acknowledge you. Jared Baker, who could not be here, but he is part of the Amelia County Parks and Rec staff, also serves as a coach, coordinator, and volunteer. Fred Burchett is sitting here. He is a retired director of Essex County Parks and Recreation. That's right. Also former vice chair of CVPRS, a retired high school teacher, department chair, athletic director, head varsity football coach, and Virginia High School League baseball official. So has a lot of very relevant experience for being on this committee as well. Ms. Valerie Harris, principal at the Amelia Nottoway Technical Center. She's hiding in the corner. She's also a teacher, the Amelia County High School volleyball coach, and former Parks and Recreation staff. She served as a coach and is a parent and volunteer as well. So she's been around Parks and Rec for a long time and has been heavily involved. Dr. Travis Johnson, hiding in the back. He is president of Farmville Family Chiropractic. He has been involved with Amelia County Parks and Recreation football, basketball, softball, and is a Dixie youth baseball parent here in Amelia as well, and serves as a coach and volunteer. He has 2 children that participate in our programs. Tasha Owens in the back here. She is a teacher at Amelia County Middle School and a math coordinator, the former math instructional coach for Amelia County Public Schools. She served as the softball commissioner for Amelia for 15 years. So, yes, she had a well-oiled machine. So I actually inherited that from her last year. So it's definitely one of our larger programs. And they have done a ton to be able to run that program very efficiently for the last 15 years. She's also involved, has 2 children, and has over the years been involved in football, softball, basketball, cheer as both a parent coach and volunteer. Nora Pike, sitting here to my right, is also a committee member. She has experience as systems and network administrator with IBM and Dell, and so brings that expertise to the work that we're doing. She has also served as Amelia County Parks and Rec administration staff and has been kind of in the weeds of all of these programs and kind of knows the ins and outs of everything. So valuable to have on our committee as well. James Poor, who could not be here. He's the current athletic director at, and teacher and coach at Blessed Sacrament Huguenot Catholic Schools, is also a parent, has 2 children involved in Parks and Rec activities. Ashley McGee, also a staff member. She could not be here, but she also serves or volunteers as a football coordinator, and her children play softball, basketball, baseball, and she's served as a coach and volunteer for many years as well. And lastly, but not least, Ann Smith, hiding in the corner. She is a local realtor and sales associate with Valentine Properties. Her family also owns and operates a pawn store. And then she has been very involved with her son with Amelia County Parks and Rec football and as a baseball parent, and served as a coach and volunteer as well.
Good. Thank you all.
A lot of knowledge in that group. That sounds like a perfect
Yes.
committee.
It was a great committee, a great group of minds to come together. So just want to, many of you have probably already seen our mission and vision, but I just want to reiterate for you what that is. So the Amelia County Parks and Rec mission is to promote passive and active recreation opportunities for Amelia County community by providing indoor and outdoor facilities and activities, and to be a resource for individuals, youth, families, and the senior community who seek to improve their quality of life through our recreational opportunities. It's important to kind of lead our conversation with that, because it's important to note, like, we're not just solving for youth programs today. Parks and Recreation serves a significant role in our community in terms of providing health and wellness more broadly across the community. And when we talk about passive and active, active speaks more to the sports programs where people are actively involved, where passive speaks to the recreational activities like places where people can walk, people can, relax, work out, and be able to do more passive activities that also support overall health and wellness in your community. And then in our vision, Amelia County Parks and Recreation vision is to be the leader in promoting community health and well-being through fun, progressive, and memorable parks and recreation activities recreation activities for all citizens by providing safe, well-designed, and maintained facilities, providing broad-based programs and services, and maximizing resources. I think you'll see through the plan that safety is probably one of the leading drivers of a lot of what is on the initial plan, that a lot of items that you've seen before Glenn has brought to this group through the CIP, for over the years. So that's kind of one of the driving themes here. And also being able to leverage our resources as efficiently as possible, which I think this group, if looking at the staff within Amelia County Parks and Recreation relative to that list that Glenn just shared, it's a pretty efficiently run organization today to be able to provide that level of service to our community with the lean staff that exists over there today. So jumping into the meat of it while we're here, the master plan that we created is based on a phased approach. And I actually want to present it in two sections. And so this first piece it includes a lot of the programs and ideas that you've seen before. So some of that will not come as a surprise, but kind of how we're stacking that and how we're recommending that might be a little bit different. We've also provided the initial cost estimates for the earlier projects, those that are closer in. We can research any of the other ones and come back to you with actual numbers around the others if we want those, but obviously knowing that we're planning a little bit further out, we can build on those numbers over time. And then the second part of the presentation is really focused around providing the rationale from this group about what we recommended that's new and different and why we think it's important to the community. And so as you see some of these new ideas in what we're about to present, maybe we can hold our questions until that second part so that hopefully we head off some of those questions with what we're about to share. All right, so walking through phase one, we bucketed this into 2020 to 2023 in these first 3 years. The first item here is lights for the elementary school fields where we have softball and soccer. Those funds are already appropriated. We've already done the grading and parking lot work over there. So I know COVID has put some damper in timelines there in terms of getting the lights installed, but that one should already be in progress, but we're highlighting it here because it hasn't been delivered yet. The second one is the portion of the library practice field near Five Forks Road to provide the lighting and grading there. Currently, that space is used as a practice field for youth football. Obviously, the time that is the time of year that happens, it gets dark earlier. And so it's very difficult for practices that don't begin until 6 p.m. for them to get any daylight hours of practice. And so with limited resources for practicing, it's a bit of a safety concern, particularly for these young players that are not skilled at hitting and, being able to have that visibility and supervision in the daylight hours is really critical in teaching them how to play the game. We have two options here, obviously, very different cost difference. Option one is around $45,000, where option two is $185,000. $185,000, and Glenn, you can correct me here, but this is to have the lighting company come in and install the big concrete poles and that sort of thing. Whereas the option one is a little more homegrown solution where we're using pine poles, right? Okay. And Southside Electric would install that for us. Option three, or number three, is a backup generator for Parks and Rec. This one is I think a big priority because that facility at any given time for a basketball game can hold up to 200 people, and the lights can go out and it's pitch black in there because of the way that the building is designed. So it's obviously a safety issue if, people are in there on those bleachers, which I'll get to a little bit later, are slightly dated. And so being able to, have that in place so that in the event that the lights go out, some backup light comes on and keeps people safe in that space. It's also important to note that it serves as a secondary emergency shelter. And while we don't have the official designation as emergency shelter, we know that like when the schools, for any reason, if the schools are threatened, they will use Parks and Rec. Also, this past summer, Southside Electric, they cut power to a good portion of the county, and they designated Parks and Rec as the backup shelter for people that needed electricity for air conditioning in those summer hours, as well as like people that are on oxygen. And so it could also have the potential to serve for the nursing home as well. Number four, and this one kind of feels like not like the others, but it's a significant investment, which is why it made the list. But it's something that I think, is maintenance and something that we need to be able to continue to maintain the fields. Right now we use an ATV to be able to get to all of our fields. And so the one that we have is kind of on its last leg, and being able to get a new one in place for us to be able to use that to reach each of those and haul around the big equipment that we use to line them. And number 5, which is the piece that we'll get to in kind of the second portion of the presentation, is a recommendation for a sports complex in Amelia County. And the idea is within the next 3 years, we would acquire land to be able to build a complex that would, in this initial first phase, have walking and hiking trails, a playground to serve the community, and also a 4 or 5 pod softball and baseball field. And there's a unique opportunity, which I'll talk more about a little bit later, for a grant that would match 50% of the land acquisition. So the idea is that would be able to, we could get that grant and be able to then build off of that and minimize the impact to taxpayers in terms of sourcing those funds. And also, which I'll get into a little bit later in this presentation, it's a real economic opportunity for us and really represents the type of economic development that might suit Amelia County really well, in that it brings people to the community, they spend their money and they leave. So phase 2, a little bit further out, 2023 to 2025. This is a proposed estimate for batting cages, bleachers, and scoreboards. So we have 5 other fields throughout the county that are used as practice fields and also shared with the school system. So there's one behind the middle school that's used for the boys' baseball games for middle school. There's also Russell Grove Field, which is also used for the girls' middle school games. And both of those are leveraged by the Parks and Rec softball teams as well. Number 7, renovating the locker rooms at War Memorial. Very few people have ever laid eyes on that space, and it's probably for good reason. So there's actually locker rooms underneath the stage. I remember because I went to middle school there. But that space, we often host tournaments, like basketball tournaments, in the War Memorial Gym, and being able to give visiting teams a space to change out, to go in between games, that sort of thing, would be an ideal upgrade for that space, which is right now not something that it can be used for. Number 8 is providing lighting on the Hindel building soccer field. So down below here, probably as you came in, many of you saw kids out there playing. And as it got dark, they had to leave. So for the same reasons as football, would love to provide some lighting there for that. It's a great space and a great field, and really kind of a centerpiece for our community too, visually. So it'd be nice to have something there that you can continue to support youth and adult soccer potentially one day. Phase 3, I actually have a phase 2 of the sports complex listed here. And so the idea is then to build on the sports complex to add an indoor practice facility. A lot of communities have that now, particularly with supporting like indoor batting cages and indoor facilities that are, they have the turf type grass indoors that allow players to be able to come inside. And that can be something that's shared both with the school system as well as Parks and Recreation, particularly the baseball and softball programs in the high school. I know they've long demanded that space to be able to practice when it's raining. The second piece is building out soccer fields or lacrosse, field hockey, just general multi-purpose fields. Knowing that lacrosse and field hockey are kind of growing in terms of interest. And, all of these things are cyclical, but there's a great demand for both soccer and lacrosse right now. So building out fields that would support both of those. And then outdoor basketball courts that really doesn't exist in Amelia right now. So having that space available and then being able to potentially host tournaments as well. Number 10 is renovations to the Joe Paulette Park. So in light of a sports complex, that would, potentially give us the opportunity to, and potentially moving the football field potentially behind the high school. The ideal vision would be that the field that is there would be a permanent baseball field. And so with that, we would also upgrade the concessions facility to include an umpire room. Right now, umpires get changed over at the high school or in their car. Not exactly the best host for that. And also, I think it's very uncomfortable, I think, for parents to see grown men changing in their car at a youth facility. So, it's a little bit of a safety and perception. So it's something that we want to be aware
It's just the
of.
way it is. I've never thought twice about it. It's just the way it is.
That's Amelia.
And when you grow up in it.
Fair. And then we would also relocate the scoreboard if that became a permanent baseball field, and then also provide bleacher roofing and the concrete associated with installing that. Number 11, war memorial upgrades. So renovating the bathrooms and the corridor. So when you first walk into Parks and Rec, right now there's no heat or air conditioning in the restrooms, which can get a little chilly in the winter months. And obviously, as Glenn indicated earlier, that space is fully utilized through those months too. So particularly women's volleyball and youth volleyball during that time of year, and basketball. And then an update to the basketball rims. So particularly the one that's closest to the corridor needs to be updated. The last time when the one on the far end was updated, we had to have an engineer come in and determine, the upgrades that were necessary to maintain the integrity of the building. Because the way it was originally designed, it's actually attached to the trusses up there. And so, as people come in and they're playing basketball and they're dunking and they're hanging on it, that was stressing that. So, we're not saying that's an issue right now. We're saying just in terms of scope, that's what had to happen for the other one. We don't know. We don't think that there's an issue with the other one, but knowing that that's a possibility when we get to that point. We have on here replacing the mats on the walls, just a maintenance item there, as well as weight room equipment upgrades. So just continuing to keep that equipment in there modern so that it appeals to those in the community. And then motorized bleacher retraction. So right now, the wooden bleachers in there, which are really, they're nice because they are, real wood, and they're very pretty and very attractive. But they also require someone to bend over and pull them in and out. So they're slightly dated. And then when you make any update like that, then that requires you to convert for ADA compliance as well. So we would have to keep in mind that we would have to do some significant renovation if we went that route. And then lastly, a protective floor covering, knowing that building is used very frequently for non-sporting events, being able to buy a nice cover to protect the floor, because I know we've invested a lot in preserving that. So on this next page, on phase 4, we're actually recommending a community center. So we did some research and saw that in other communities, an actual community center building does fall within the Parks and Recreation scope, and would love to have a facility to really have that extra space. So meeting rooms, training rooms, classrooms, potentially even a stage. And the idea is that it would be available for rental. So I think just a few weeks ago, the Parks and Rec has been used for everything. People have gotten married in the Parks and Rec building. They have baby showers there. We have the Snowflake Ball, which is a ball to recognize volunteers. A couple weeks ago, there's a quinceañera, I know I'm saying that wrong, which is a 15th birthday celebration within Mexican culture. And they rented that space, and I accidentally walked in my softball stuff, and they were having a very formal affair with a DJ, and everyone was dressed very nicely. And so, I think that the community is lacking a space for events like that. There are some options like the Veteran Center, but there's a cost associated with that. And so, and it can be fairly sizable. And so keeping it, something, realistic and cost, and making it available to the community is really important. But it also gives us an opportunity to welcome other like health and wellness, offer those courses to the community and making that meeting space available. Right now, there's a lot of senior citizen activities that take place in church rec rooms or rec halls. That's something that, is kind of an untapped need. And so being able to serve the broader community and having that space available as well. Obviously, there's a lot to think about in terms of like how that would come to life. But I think that there is a need. And so, and what that looks like, I think obviously we can explore that around 2030.
We need that one in phase one, actually.
I think it's a big need.
It's a huge need.
And lastly, in phase 5, we have a proposed additional phase for the sports complex, which would be an indoor basketball facility to expand on what we have going on at Parks and Rec now. We know that, I believe it's in Henrico, they're building a very big facility because they're right there on the 95 corridor. So they're able to attract a lot of basketball teams as part of travel to bring those people into their community, spend their money, and leave. And lastly, and within that facility, there's also the ability to use that space for, craft shows, trade shows, et cetera. And then lastly, the building football fields there that would be turf. All right. So I realize that's a lot. But I'd like to take a minute or we both know it's not going to be a minute. I'd like to take a few minutes and share our thoughts around the sports complex because I realize this is a significant investment. And while I think we could all sit around and agree that the need exists and this would be great for the community, it all depends on the money, if the money exists to build it and what it could provide to the community. So we want to talk through like what we believe is the case for bringing this to Amelia County. So here are just a few images, and this is actually pulled from the website from Chakalaka Park in Alabama, which is where our Darlings went this past summer for the World Series. And this is an incredibly impressive facility, and this is not what we're proposing.
I'll take it. Say no more, we're good.
All right, somebody write that down.
Yeah, you can put my name.
That's right. That's right. But you'll see, so this facility actually has a 4-pod and a 5-pod. And you'll see when I talk about it being a pod, so this photo up top, basically there's 4 fields and the center is the concessions and a press box and your facilities. So your restrooms, et cetera. And so it's built in a circle so that it serves all 4 fields at once. And you'll note that the way that the fields are set up, so this is actually, it's designed as a baseball field, but there's high-end temporary fencing, which allows it to be used as a softball field as well. And so, why I think we should, potentially consider having baseball and softball options there is because the high school would have the ability to host tournaments there, or when they participate in Virginia High School League tournaments, tournament play that can be held here as well.
That's rather similar to the Field of Dreams that Farmville did, right? I mean, Gotcha.
As a matter of fact, yes. Yes. And so this is just another image of another park that we researched and found. But, overall, like we really believe that this multi-use sports complex can provide those passive and active outdoor recreational opportunities for all community members. And that investment in our community will improve the quality of life and also provide valuable tax revenue to our county. So this next slide I won't go into because I already covered it all because it was kind of dropped into the larger plan. But here are the plans that we think that over the next 20 years that this complex could look like eventually. So to Joseph's point, this next slide here, we pulled aerial photos of just some of the parks within our region. So thinking specifically about the Dixie softball district. So both girls and boys within Amelia County participate in what's labeled as District 5 for Dixie softball. And so the people within our area that we visit their parks are Powhatan, Goochland, and Buckingham that have facilities that are memorable, and certainly something that we're looking to as kind of beacons and ideas. The first one is Powhatan. So Powhatan, they have two different complexes. So Turner Complex, which is actually owned by the Powhatan Youth Athletic Association, which is an independent group that works with the county. But they run that separate, whereas Fighting Creek is owned by the county. Fighting Creek is a newer facility, more state-of-the-art in terms of design. They also had the benefit of just north of them, you'll see that the Army Guard, National Guard,
Yes.
sorry, they actually cleared a lot of that land for them as a part of this work. And so obviously there was a big cost savings there to do that. But they have soccer fields up there, field hockey, and softball and baseball, and they host tournaments there year round. And they are actually tapped as one of the travel ball facilities. So the organizations throughout the state that host various travel ball tournaments keep that facility booked, and they pay Powhatan County to do that. And so a lot of times, and Tasha can attest to this, that if Powhatan Dixie softball does not get their tournament on the calendar in time, they have to use Turner Field. They cannot use Fighting Creek because it's already booked. Hidden Rock Park, it's unique in that it was built on the old landfill in Goochland. So a good use of space, however, not the best land because it doesn't drain well because of where it is. But at the same time, you see that often in communities where they leverage that land that doesn't necessarily have use otherwise. So an idea there. And then Jean Dixon Park in Buckingham, it actually started as a smaller facility with one or two fields, and then they were gifted in that additional portion of land here in the back, and they were able to expand on that. So they have a really nice field. And what's interesting about that is it's while it's on a main road, you actually have to go through a residential area to get back there to it. So it doesn't always need to be, right there on the side of 360, for example.
How many acres is it? Any idea?
I don't know. I can circle back with all that though.
One part of it, they got 50 acres donated by the finite miners only.
Mm-hmm.
So the total of 50, but the land was donated to them by the finite miners.
Yeah, that's the Buckingham one specifically. And then the next one here is the Prince Edward Farmville Field of Dreams that Joseph had mentioned. They built this 4-pod field, and they also use it for soccer. And then that also has this additional baseball field, and that's actually built adjacent to their industrial park. And then up here to the right, there's the Crew Burkeville fields. And so they have 3 fields as well. They don't have significant facilities supporting a lot of that, but they have, at least 3 fields all in that one space, though.
So basically, all our surrounding counties are already having sports complexes.
they have sports complexes.
Well, yeah, and I mean, probably because it's a different district, but you didn't mention Dinwiddie, but they certainly have an enormous complex as well.
They have an enormous complex made possible by Walmart.
Yeah,
The Walmart Distribution Center paid for that. And so what's important to note about them is they almost consistently win the bid to host the Bells and Debs Dixie tournaments every year because of their facility.
well, yes, I agree on the Walmart piece. I think that's why it was very appropriate that you brought up the economic development angle as well, because there is definitely an intricate link between the two. Yeah, very fair.
So we did some high level research to kind of think through like why would this make sense in Amelia, and did a bit of a needs assessment here. So I think it's important to note that, you know, Amelia is home to 13,000 residents, with over 20% of those being under the age of 18. And that's based on the most recent, or 2019 census data, sorry. And so, you know, it serves a significant portion of our community relative to the youth, but also in general. And so it's also critical to, you know, as I mentioned before, critical to the health and well-being of individuals. And it's no surprise to anybody in this room that is from Amelia County that people in this community have struggled with depression, and people in this community have struggled with drug use. It's really prevalent in our society, especially now. COVID isn't helping. And this is something that gives people something to do, something to be a part of. And not just a complex, but being able to facilitate some type of meeting area and to be able to have that sense of community. There was an article actually in the Monitor, I think Becky told me it was roughly 2008, where Amelia County was deemed, we earned the title of suicide capital of Virginia, which is a horrible statistic to be known for or to earn. And something that I think, you know, we constantly try to, you know, do programs to reach out to members of our community that are struggling. But at the end of the day, you know, we need to change and enable certain opportunities to reach out to those people and to create a culture where people know that they have others and they have that sense of community, they have that sense of belonging, and they have that sense of being part of something, so that they, you know, feel validated. Kind of turning the page there a little bit, the flip side of that is that looking at this map here to the right, this is a map that kind of reflects the household income, the median household income by region. And you'll see that Amelia kind of stands alone. So we, you know, we don't make as much as our partners or our neighbors to the east in Chesterfield, but to those to the west, you know, we certainly are better off than they are. And certainly they have all invested in, you know, in the previous slides I shared, they have all invested in this space and making sure that they have that that option for their community. But, you know, that being able to make that an affordable, you know, recreation opportunity really helps to reinforce those positive life choices and healthy living habits that we really crave. And being of a lower income community, it certainly is even more so important when the alternatives to entertainment are drug use. I think we've already kind of talked about, and Glenn presented the slides early on, that our current facilities are well leveraged. I mean, it's run really efficiently, but like the demand exists in our community to use these resources. So just to give you an idea of the number of people that come through. So pulling data from Tasha's last year's commissioner, there were 190 registered players just in spring softball, so March to June. With 190 players, the $85 per player registration fee comes into just over $16,000. With that, you assume at least 15, we probably typically average, 2 teams per age group. And with that, a team of 15 players, and they keep the fields busy, practicing 2 nights a week, 4 nights per week, games twice a week on both fields. And I say both fields because while we have other facilities available in the county, what's important to note is that in terms of hosting games, we really choose to schedule those at the county lot baseball field or the county lot softball field, because those are the only places with lights, concessions, and restrooms. We do have porta-johns that we use at the other fields that people use for practices. But in terms of hosting other counties, not having running water, especially during COVID, but in general, and not being able to use facilities is not the ideal place. And also we miss out on the revenue of concessions if we put them on those other fields. So, but anyway, so to that point, if you assume that every team of 15 players and at least 2 coaches has at least 2 people come to the game. So mom and dad brought you, or mom and grandma, came, and you have players from other teams as well. You're looking at over 33,000 visitors to those parks just between the months of March and June.
I think half of those are me.
And most of them are Hawaiian.
And also, something that's always impressed me for the fields that we have, our kids have done very well at the state level and consistently go to tournaments. What do we do with better facilities?
Yeah, we haven't even really touched on the fact, like,
Where we practice and
where we are a powerhouse in both in boys and girls. Emilia, it has a strong reputation. Ball is part of our culture. We're an athletically focused culture. Part of that is because you're in a rural community and there are many other options, but in keeping your kid involved in sports keeps them out of trouble, right? Idle minds. There's a lot of talent in our community, and you think about, as you foster that, and you think about the surrounding counties and how they've invested in that, and how they have then, these youth programs, then they end up in your school programs, and your school programs are stronger, which leads to more funds, more investment, people attracted to your community because of that as well. It all ties together when you build a program that overall benefits the entire community from soup to nuts. So this next page here speaks more beyond just the softball piece, because obviously that's where I'm focused given my role, and that's where I have the numbers to pull in here. I also want to show that in terms of walking trails, like being able to have those walking trails at the park. The image that I showed at the beginning of the presentation from Chakalaka Park, they had a beautiful lake, which was built obviously when they did all the dirt work for the facility. They were able to build this lake that then had a 2-mile trail, paved trail around it. Just an efficient use of space, right? And smart engineering to be able to take advantage of that. Today, the walking trails that exist in Amelia are local roadways. So you often see people up and down the road, even on back roads and, in rural communities. The Amelia Veterans Cemetery, which is obviously limited access when there are services in session. And then the high school track, which is a great place, but it's off limits when school's in session. And right now we don't have sidewalks in town, but given the size of our community, I don't even know that it's feasible that would solve a need if you had all of sidewalks everywhere. But there are no requirements to put them in developments either. So those don't exist in that space. the youth playgrounds that exist today, there is one with more modern equipment there at Joe Paulette Park, so just below the softball field. So, and there are always kids on that, especially when you have games going on. It keeps the younger kids that are not on the field out of trouble because they go down there. But there are no swings. It's one size or a moderate size. Certainly opportunity for something more. There's the school facilities. Obviously, they're really new, nice one at the elementary school, which is great. But again, off limits when school's in session. So you think about people that have young children that are not of school age yet. They have nowhere to go. Homeschool people, they have nowhere to go either. And then lastly, the Historical Society has equipment out there too, but it's extremely dated. So I'm not sure the safety issues there. And then to the right here, I've just articulated the number of playing fields that we have. Obviously, with the Joe Paulette Park being the place where we host and everything else kind of being more of a practice facility, which have served our needs to this point. And so comparing what we're proposing to like Powhatan's situation, ideally you would continue to have all of this as well so that you can use the new complex for your tournaments, your games, et cetera, but you still have practice fields that meet the needs of community and the broader programs. So here we are around the economic impacts. At the end of the day, like I said, like this really ties in nicely with our comprehensive plan and our growth objectives. We want to preserve the rural elements of our community. We don't want to forego agricultural land. We don't want to draw in industry or people that are a drain on our resources that are not giving back. And so this is one of those really kind of unique opportunities to be able to, like I said, bring people in. They will come, they will spend money at restaurants, they will spend money at gas and service stations, grocery stores, our hotel and lodging. And then there's concessions opportunities. You're collecting tournament fees, gate fees, advertising fees, all surrounded with this when you build a complex. With that, we have the opportunity to host more regular season games. So right now we do about 15, and sometimes we're likely to play away from home more often because that means somebody else is we don't necessarily have the space or somebody else is paying for the umpire. But being able to facilitate more at home would bring more people into the community and get those folks spending money. Also, the ability to host those one-day tournaments, I spoke already about that, but Fighting Creek, at any given time, for those travel ball truck tournaments, you're talking about 12 plus teams, depending on what kind of tournament it is.
Christina, do you remember when they did the Super World Series in Louisiana, do you remember the expected income for that? I mean, it was in the millions. Yeah. But I don't remember what the figure was.
I don't remember the figure.
That just for that town to host a 5-6 day tournament for all the leagues, but they were millions of dollars.
Yeah. Well, and so Chocolaw Park in Alabama, they've built this huge park, and it's really, that is their industry. And so when people come to town, the town welcomes them. Like the mayor comes, and there's a welcoming committee for the Dixie board because they bring so much money to the community.
Yeah, it's tens of thousands of dollars per weekend.
Yes,
for those weekend
absolutely. They're all in hotels. They're all spending money. They're eating out. I mean, yeah. So to that point, the ability to host those district tournaments. So we hosted a district tournament in 2018, or was it 19? 19. Do you have the funds there? An estimate? So I apologize. I put a placeholder there, and I didn't. We didn't pull that number in. But the amount of money that I can follow up with that, the amount of money that we raised with that, and that was just leveraging the baseball and the county lot field. And so that is, something that we've been able to do. However, it's not ideal because the baseball field has a mound on it. And so being able to play girls softball on a field with a mound on it is a safety issue. And also, it's not something that we win the bid for because people aren't thrilled about that. We also have a really big backstop, which the younger teams dislike for obvious reasons.
Where have you heard that before?
Yeah. So in addition to, generating revenue, there's opportunities to bring additional employment opportunities within the community. And so thinking about being able to staff up at your restaurant or at the gas stations, knowing that we have this demand. I mean, everybody knows that Dollar General is never staffed appropriately for Amelia Day, ever.
Good point.
But so being able to meet that and give those opportunities to our local citizens. Also, the construction of the facility, being able to give those folks opportunities. And then we'll need maintenance staff to keep those fields maintained in good shape. And then also, with a facility like that, you'll want to have someone managing and scheduling, constantly keeping it used so that you reap the benefits of that investment. Totally. I mean, having the fields that we have now it's a pretty heavily demanded position. Okay, so we've sold you the dream. Now here's how we want to pay for it. There's actually a 50-50 grant with Land, Water, and Conservation and Recreation Department for up to $8 million. The minimum investment is a $500,000 facility, which they would match $250,000 of. And this portion of the grant is specifically intended for land acquisition only. So one of the criteria for the grant, though, is that the county must be willing to say that they would buy it all. And then we would be reimbursed based on, we would submit requests for reimbursement. The ticker here is that the deadline is December 15th to apply for this. So we realize that's an incredibly aggressive goal for people that are walking in without a design architect plan and a request for a specific acreage. And so kind of coming out of this meeting, we would like permission of the board to go and speak with an architect and engage an architect to begin that, scope the acreage that we need to be able to do that. And also begin working with realtors to identify potential sites that would work to support this.
Christina, you want to mention the grant writer?
Yes. So I understand the county works with a grant writer today. And we've already spoken with him about, I'm sorry?
Todd?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Spoken to him about working on this, and he wants to get a call together with the grant writer. Yeah. To get this in motion. So I realize this is aggressive, but
It's very aggressive.
we'll never know unless we try.
So you're saying that this money would fund the acquisition only, but we have to commit to building the structure as well?
Commit to building the structure within a 3-year period, yes. And that's why we built it out in this phase.
We
So
could do
phase
a minimum
one.
of a $500,000 structure, right?
Exactly.
So that's, in the grand scheme, that's not much.
Well, and so if you're looking,
Yeah.
one of the things that we saw too in our research, though, is when you're looking at the acreage needed to support this, it grows really quickly because you need the parking to be able to support this, to be able to facilitate those tournaments and to fully leverage all of the resources at once. And so, you're looking at up to 200 acres. And so I spoke with a local agent and she said, acreage at that size in one tract, you could look at, like $3,500 an acre is kind of what they're seeing land going at right now based on recent sales. But yeah.
What is their definition of recreational facilities that developing? Like can you buy land and put trails around and some bathrooms in the parking lot? Is that your facilities for your 3 years? I mean,
Yes.
are there specific, so basically we could this is for acquiring land then.
Christine, I can address a little bit of that. So in speaking to Todd, Todd said what we would have to do in order to start this project, we would have to sit down with the Department of Conservation and give them a general idea of what we're trying to do.
Mhm.
And then once we do, they would tell you what type of money to give. So he's on a freeway conversation between us, department, so that.
Well, that's how a conversation hurts anything. I mean,
I like 50-50 match programs.
But you're gonna have to fund a community planner type person, an architect or whatever. Somebody's gonna make the pretty drawings to put with the grant request.
I got one other thing I'm gonna go ahead and add, but this is probably kicking to the whole thing. I know you guys are selling the property at the Ashlands, and that was designated for Parks and Rec and schools. So, I don't know if you have the money already designated to spend on something, but I need to say this: if it wasn't designated for Parks and Rec prior, it'd be money that you wouldn't have to come up with, and it'd be money that you could front, and we could go into the planning of the grant, saying whatever amount that you all give us, that's all we do. So the money up front, we could match whatever. And the grant goes up to $8 million. What Todd told us is you have to be prepared. Let's say if we put in $500,000. Todd said you have to be prepared because this does happen. And Mr. Retraction also reminded us that the state can come back and say, hey, I don't have 500 matching. That's something that
I don't get what you're saying.
okay. So if you commit $500,000, okay, the cents are matching the grant, so that would be $1 million, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. At any point of the grant, the state could come back and say, you don't have $500,000 because they can afford it. You need to be aware that we're committed for that entire thing. Whatever we do, now, most likely you'll probably get something. There's a possibility that you won't.
And move fast, that's all.
Okay, I put that out there because we don't want the public to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
This project gonna require water and sewer? Yeah, so the Grubville Church is out of the question, really.
We
He's
weren't
saying the
just
funds
using
from,
land.
Yeah.
the funds from selling.
But I mean, you were saying it was allocated to
Yeah.
Parks and Rec.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was.
Well, it's
I don't think that was ever real.
No. Another reason we made the right decision.
I like it.
Christine, what is the sponsor donation?
So in the research that we did, a lot of times when people are investing as a community to do this, they open it up to having businesses sponsor at significant levels to invest. You can buy a brick, as part of the concessions, as a walkway, et cetera, giving them opportunities to purchase, various elements of the park as
Like
sponsorship.
Southside Electric would do a pavilion or something.
Exactly. Well, Southside Electric, actually, it's been a while since Field of Dreams was done, but Southside Electric did the electric work there, obviously, pro bono.
So South Hill got Parker Field
Right,
because Parker Oil
right,
Oh,
Cool's got a big
cut them a check.
pavilion
So
too.
right.
that's a good idea.
And so from what I understand, like,
Fundraising could be done.
Yeah.
Sponsorships and fundraising.
and also like community members wanting to be a part of it and donating services.
I'll buy a walking trail.
Yeah.
Name it after me.
procrastination.
Oh,
You opened yourself up for it.
Next trail it is though.
This kind of ties in with.
Everybody on that trail will be late getting back.
Any drawings for that too?
I want to add.
Yeah.
It can all be done together.
And sell their economy built on this.
yes.
They push every
Well, no.
selling Virginia sale. Their economy right now. Of course, you're talking about a bigger, more, of a bigger population, but Amelia is on the 360 corner, 20 minutes from 288. We get emails every single day for basketball tournaments in Berlin. We get emails for softball tournaments. I mean, the sports peaks, and Christina mentioned this earlier. He mentioned the fact that Hill Rapids will make $10 million on Virginia Center Commons to renovate it for basketball. Virginia Beach just did the same thing. The reason being, parents, and I was part of this for 20-some years for art officiating. The parents, they just see that as an opportunity for their kid to, one, to get better, and two, possible scholarship. So they're gonna come if you do it. They're gonna come. You just have to make sure the site that you build is accessible.
That's true.
And that the plan that you put into it makes it accessible to the parents, and they will come. They, Columbia Stadium, you know what it is in Crew? It's off the road. You can't even see it. It's probably 60 years old. They have a group that uses that every single year. That Longwood and what other field? Oh, Hampton City. They use those three fields when they do a baseball tournament, and the parents come in droves from out of state, Maryland, you name it, they come.
Yeah.
But you have to have a system set up so that when you start doing this tournament, you have a place for them to come and a good place for them.
You got to keep them happy while they're here.
Yep.
That's right. And like Christine said, wave them when they leave.
Yep.
Right.
Because to that point, I mean, they wouldn't be leveraging our education resources, right? So they're not going to be a drain on that, and they're not going to be, taking up land or putting in temporary housing or, modular homes on a 10-acre lot that has no resale value. They're going to be coming here, spending their money and increasing, our tax revenue and then leaving. And also at the same time, giving those opportunities for our own children to have better.
It's all typically family-oriented people coming.
Right.
It's not,
Right.
you don't get a lot of trouble and
Some of the groups
Right.
that you primarily cater to.
Right, right.
I'm all for it. I brought it up in the budget last budget session. I mentioned Rockwood Park in Chesterfield, so I'm doing something like that. Similar, that's 165 acres.
Oh, that's good comparison, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we're all supportive in general. I mean, we named this one of our top 4, Parks and Rec as one of our top 4 priorities for a reason. I think the December 15th timeline.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on.
That one's a little harder.
We're not even funding the current CIP yet. Until December, we're not even having that discussion.
Yeah. I maybe I'm too optimistic. I have to think that even if we lose the timeline for that particular grant opportunity, there do tend to be others and similarly come along. It's hard. It's a weird spot in our budget cycle to commit to something like that. A couple other thoughts, though. You mentioned the generator for War Memorial Building, which I think is a very valid need, as you mentioned. I think there's a strong possibility of a grant for at least a portion of that
agree.
when you focus on the emergency services
Yep.
side of that. And I think that if Kent and Glenn could work together with Todd from CRC, right?
CRC.
Then I think that's a good grant consideration in the short term. Even if it covered 25, 50% of that, that would help us really be able to move forward, something like that. I also think as we look through this, that there are a number of things that I think are unfortunate that we even need to consider in a plan like this and consider for CIP funding. I'll explain. I think the ATV for maintenance, the wall mats, the upgrades and maintenance to the weight room, the basketball rims. I think in general, we are underfunding the annual budget
Yes.
for Parks and Rec. Now, we're not going to make an adjustment to the annual budget like right now, but this is great information as it's always budget time. Like we're about to kick off we just finished one budget cycle. We're about to kick off the next one, right?
You know, we're gonna be going into that portion.
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
Operation.
Yeah, so it's a great time.
As a matter of fact. So it's good to have this information.
It is.
For us to have this information.
But
That was one of the objectives.
it is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, y'all have definitely met the objective. So to that point, you've
Be
definitely met.
careful what you ask for.
Well, right.
Exactly what I asked for.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So I think we need to look at, from two phases. There's definitely some big projects.
Yep.
But then I think we need to consider how, or in this case, how we're not
Yep.
funding sufficiently enough the ongoing operations. And sorry, I have my back to you. It's really challenging position here. Talk to that menu. I think it'd be helpful if we could look at so two requests, I guess. If we could look at the budgets for the counties that surround us, not Chesterfield, the others that are more westerly, and compare the percentage of the annual budget that they spend on parks and recreation versus ours. I always think that's a helpful compare. It doesn't mean you make a decision
Operating budget
based.
or CIP?
So we
Or both?
I mean, how about both?
Travis
How about
actually
both?
did some of that research.
It's really unprepared and I was limited on the resources, but that
Okay.
was the very
Well,
first step that I did.
How about we just follow up with, take that further and give us a full picture of it. We're getting late tonight too, since you're
That's-
limited for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And related to that, and I think Roger has a good point, both the annual budget as well as the CIP ideally, which can be harder to get.
Yeah, no,
CIP
and that
portion.
was, Powhatan was pretty easy. Farmville was really shady for some reason. I really was. I was talking to people over there. I know the people in that group.
Good. Carla knows a lot of them too, because they're her
Buckingham,
peers.
Cumberland, little iffy on their numbers, but I was able to get, your total budget, the park and rec budget, get a percentage of that.
Good.
But then it's different on how park and rec is shared through the different activities in the community.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
offer a whole lot, where
Yes.
you look at Farmville and it's
Compared to
different.
others.
Because
Right.
it only supports to different groups. There's a lot of private groups.
Yeah.
And one of the big things I was talking to Christine about, with the field that we want to do is basically if you don't grab a hold of this concept, some private company's going to come in and do it. And my ultimate goal to talk with Glenn is to try to get our park and rec program up and going to support our school systems and to kind of, I don't want to say merge the two together to scare anybody if that does, or whatever. But to merge the two is to get better quality coaching, better quality
Sure.
players, better quality
Sure.
county as a whole, but also to support the community as a whole too. But when I was pulling numbers, I'm like, it seems like our numbers, even though they're up there, the amount of things we offer, we really need a whole lot more. And possibilities of talking, communicating with the schools as well. How you guys feel about that? But I would like to see a merger with that to really improve both avenues together.
Well, and I think this is a group that's very well aware when you compare the budgets that it's not all apples to apples too.
Right,
So,
right.
put the footnotes and the asterisks behind that, which is why I think it'd be better for us to get it written so we can take it all in than just go off numbers that you have off the top there. And I think related to that, which is part of where you were going, it'd be helpful to take a look. I think this should be already available. I just don't know it, but of the existing annual budget we have for parking, let's look at what portion is then recouped by the fees and other things. I probably should already know that, but I went through one cycle, remember? So it's something that'll be good to refresh our memory on too, because I think that's really helpful. That's not everything that we spend out means there's a good portion that comes back from the users. Okay. And I think I had one last comment, I'll be totally done, is I really liked in the plan how you took a broad definition of recreation. So you heard a couple comments from us, like really liking the community center idea in phase 4. I like that it's not like the plan isn't all sports, right? It's parks and recreation. You took a very broad view, and I think that's great. I think the walking and hiking trails that you all emphasized, as
That's
well as the.
I hear about that all the time. From
Oh, I didn't-
older women especially, they want someplace safe to go to walk.
Yeah, and then playground, same thing. I hear from parents all the time. They do not feel like we have good playground facilities. Even the few that we have that you highlighted, there's a lot of issues with many of them, including lighting, access to bathrooms nearby, et cetera. The only two things I could think that maybe I didn't see in that for just future consideration would be, I've gotten a couple comments from citizens about, we have great rivers flowing through, but we have no public access to any of those. So that's a resource that, even just building that kind of landing and access space could be relatively cheap in an early phase to do. And then we hear all the time about skateboarding, and my kids don't, but I know there's a high demand for that. So.
Now, the rivers, we could probably look through the state and or the Army Corps of Engineers.
So we actually discussed both of those, actually, Mr. Burchett, having been in Essex, right on the Rappahannock River, he's been part of pushing a landing as well, similar to like what they have in Powhatan State Park and being able to launch canoes and kayaks there. So that was something that we talked about, and also we recognize that skateboard park, and Glenn's had that on his CAP for a long time. And
Yes.
and figuring out whether, where to put that was something that we struggled with a little bit in terms of, do you put it at the sports complex? Do you put it closer to town, et cetera? So
I think we can have a 20-year plan. You're not going to have all the details obviously worked out, and whatever you have can change obviously too.
For sure.
So I think we understand that part.
And there are more, when it comes to the Parks and Rec side, there are grants.
Like the
Yes.
foundation.
Cal Ripken,
Yep.
well, 50% grant match, ballpark facility.
yeah, and
But it's like it's got to be a $1 million or $1.2 million. So it's got to be up to their name, but they'll split it 50-50. So there's a lot of grant opportunities. I don't know how to seek them, how to get them, but
We can keep Todd busy.
yes, we absolutely could.
Keep them busy.
all these may add up and,
Yeah.
Get our name on that monthly report. once in a
Yeah.
while.
So I guess to recap, I understand that the grant is aggressive given the timing,
Is
but
this an
to me-
annual thing?
not that I'm aware of. And so in this phase, it's only acquisition. So they oftentimes open it up for land acquisition, and then they also open it up for development. But there's not a defined cycle. So is there an opportunity for us to proceed with maybe at least getting an architect and a conversation with the grant writer and so we can figure out, because at this point, we don't know what we're asking for.
Specific, we can't authorize funds that are not budgeted,
Okay.
particularly during a workshop. We can have discussions.
Mhm.
But as Roger said, we have specifically put all CIP on hold because of the unknown impacts to our income due to coronavirus. And so it's a difficult time to.
without any funding, somebody could contact local realtors and see if there's anything even currently available, or work on the availability piece for land.
Water and sewer is the problem.
Yeah, because if nothing's available, then there's no need, within,
Well, that's true. If you have nothing to acquire, what grant do you?
right. Or we could be working on somebody on that deal, sweet talking somebody for the kids.
Just having
Well,
a
and
target
something-
property by then is probably
For sure.
very difficult.
Well, to
Somebody
get
willing to do it,
an architect to actually draw out the design,
rendering.
I think, to render what it is we're looking for would be a key step in kind of moving this forward so that we
Yep.
can be in a better position the next time this comes along. Because right now we have nothing. We have this.
So along that, I think we're all open, by the way, I think we're all saying we love the concept. It's the timing that's the problem. So if you look in the current CIP, there are several groups who are asking for similar to you. approximately 25,000 that both the library, the animal shelter, at least. Hindel, yeah. And that are asked, maybe even that's an emergency training. Yeah. That are asking for an initial, again, 25,000-ish to do that planning that then gives you the detail to move forward. So truly, we're about to kick off the budget cycle. I mean, like Carla's already sending out emails. Like it's the time to submit.
Next year's budget.
I agree, but that's what I'm saying. It's time to submit things like that to make requests into the CIP. So while I don't know there's anything we can say yes to for December, none of us are saying these are unreasonable. This is exactly what we're looking for. It's just where we are in the budget cycle. We've got to plan for it.
You've done exactly what some of the other requesters and our presenters have done.
You're just late to the game.
You're laid it out, and of course, the timing with us at this point makes it a little bit iffy, so to speak. But
personally, I think, especially with COVID, and we may have to delay some of the bigger ticket items, that we ought to fund some of this planning.
Oh, I agree.
This year, CIP, so that next year we're ready to rock.
That's right. This
Yeah, so don't let it, I mean, that's not particularly don't delay a CIP request. David's so happy to pull them in.
I want to leave this with you. I said it once, I'm going to say it again. The profit that you guys make from sale of the land, if that's available, you would like to have it. I want to make that plain and clear.
We heard that the first time.
I stand up for my committee. The work that they put in, I feel like that's the least that can happen.
Email me the piece of land you find.
Okay.
I'm really impressed with the quality.
Yeah, they're not joking though about the
Product
roof requisition.
It's good. Gives me a little better impression as to what you guys do and expertise you have working with you. And, in this particular instance, in Park and Rec, good night. I'm able to use you somewhere else.
Yeah.
Do you all have any more questions for us before we? Yes.
Joseph, I'm not sure we're on the same page.
Oh.
I'm talking about taking $25,000, $30,000 now and using it for this,
I'm not disagreeing.
not having them submit a plan for next year's CIP.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but you need a CIP thing to
We need a
fund.
request.
Right. You need a
But
request.
we can do it with this year's.
Absolutely. But you still have to have a request you have to have a request on file. So maybe my words weren't, I think we are thinking the same thing, just different.
So.
We'll take
That's what I'm saying. Don't wait.
Consider it done.
It's handwritten.
I misunderstood. I thought you were saying get a request in for the upcoming budget cycle.
I didn't say it clear. What we're saying is you can't fund something that doesn't have a request through CIP.
Understood.
So put it in. We're already talking about on the books that we're going to revisit this year's CIP in December. That's really not far away.
No.
Get it in so that it has that. And what they were both saying is you're unlikely to be able to commit due to uncertainty around coronavirus for huge projects. There's more likelihood for us to be able to fund smaller, like a $25,000 planning and research activity.
The generator.
Yeah, or Frank says, or the generator.
The generator.
Right. That's
Any more questions?
Nope.
Good.
Good job.
Good job.
Yeah, don't forget the grant
Close out.
on the generator, like the Todd.
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank Christina for the job she did. Excellent.
Beautiful.
I think she did. And I want to thank you guys for taking the opportunity to listen to us. You know, this is the first for me. I've been here for 21 years, going on 22. It's the first. And I think the community would benefit from anything that you guys allow us to do. I know they would. And the community wants a sports complex. And you hear parents all day, Glenn, what do we need to do? Well, you guys just provided that avenue. And I just want to thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present. Most of all, I want to thank these people that participated on it. Maybe that they did a good job, so they deserve a round. appreciate the opportunity and thank you so much.
Glenn, I do have one unofficial question, but in the grand scheme of sports complex, would there ever be any transitioning of some of the fields directly to the schools as far as their care and maintenance, or would Parks and Rec continue?
Great question. If we go to a sports complex, and Dr. Hopper and I have talked a little bit, we actually had in our CIP rights for the baseball field
Yeah,
behind the middle school and rights for the bus shop.
right.
She and I spoke, and I told her those projects would get turned over to her for her CIP because of what we're trying to do with this one.
Okay, yeah, that's
You guys asked us
curious.
to revamp it. That's what she and I talked to them. Now, the one that we will have a jump venture on, because both of us will be using it, is a football field. That football field, when it transfers from across the street to behind the school, that has to be a jump venture because we will be using that strictly as a youth field and for her as a high school facility. So that'll be a jump venture. And when we get to that facility, we would have to have a CIP for both of us. We've already talked, so we just have to go back and get the details.
Good partner.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Next speaker on this.
Good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Harris, can I
Hold your
speak
breath.
behind?
Yes, you may.
Alicia, may I?
Going to see a mask. I am impressed.
I know.
You said from day one, it'll come up good.
I did, and yeah, with passion. And there's so much passion.
I didn't know that. I didn't know all these people were involved.
I didn't know either. He said he got a committee, but like, wow.
I thought it would be just Glenn.
You get to talking about the kids, it gets,
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. First time I've seen this in 21 years.
I know.
I've been waiting to hear that
Glenn
in public.
told me, they saw me the other day in the parking lot, how excited he was. Like, more motivated than I was.
All right. What's next?
All right, we can go to those 4 items that,
That was it for this already.
that was it for the presentation. We got CIP, solar panels, Hindel building and library. So that's,
And on the CIP,
We're continuing. Y'all are welcome to. Thank you. Stay quietly or go home.
welcome to stay.
I was supposed to say, yeah, stay is fine.
Yeah, so on the CIP,
CIP.
we were talking about possibly releasing some funds for like the library study before December, little things. And the Hindel committee wanted to do the same thing as what Glenn's talking about, is putting in a request for 25,000 or whatever for feasibility study on what to do with that. An architect or a community planner / architect. I don't know what their real title is.
What does it take tactically to be able to approve? So we paused on the CIP. We didn't include it in the budget per se. And my understanding is if we were to have expenses, a change to the budget greater than 1%, we have to do a public hearing, et cetera. That's why the CARES fund, but that was over $3 million. That was over $3 million.
That's the operational budget though, right?
That's the.
Well, that's why I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking the question. Like, if we decide to move forward, what does it take? I don't think it could be vote on it at a workshop, but just what is the process?
Yeah, I'm not proposing we vote on it.
No, I didn't say you were. I didn't say you were.
That's a Jeff question. I think
I
it's
believe-
1%, but I'd ask Jeff.
I think it's 1% on operational budget. But general revenue funds and operational budget, but I think CIP is different, but we can ask him.
Because if that's possible,
We can talk about it next week.
we
That's
we can talk
exactly.
about that next week.
That's exactly where I was going. Like, if we could come up with this,
Yeah.
like, let's just write down what those are that you're talking about, and then be able to move forward with those.
So
For example, you were talking about with the CIP, we're talking about these, and how much money we're looking at, and then what the
well, the
possibilities.
library,
All right, so library was like,
well, Carol
I
had
just
to
want
bump
to
it
get
up
a
to
general idea,
42.
you know what I mean?
They requested 35 and he bumped it up to 42.
42.
all right, and the animal one.
Animal shelter was 30, I believe 30.
Okay.
And Hindel, they're looking at like 25.
25.
Is Hindel already submitted as a CIP request? I'm only asking just because if that changes the kind of like this, do we need an official something in the CIP? I'm not saying wait till the next year's cycle. All right.
No, but I mean, I just wanted to bring it up, float it, and if you guys are in support, we'll get a request.
What's, okay, this CRP/library, right?
Library,
That's what we're
animal
talking about,
shelter.
animal shelter and-
um,
Okay.
All right, so it's about 120.
In the building and park, four things, right?
Park?
Yeah.
Oh, this one.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Yeah, so between the four of them, if you went with animal at 30, library at 42, a little bit more, I mean, you're talking under, no more than, let me say it this way, 125,000. So when you talk to Jeff, that gives you an idea what we're talking about.
1/3 of 1 month of landfill fees.
Right, and I think that's where we need to be very clear, because
So like you don't have the money.
that's what changes that's what's changing, I think the situation is, while we don't know long-term money,
That's money.
because of
This is
coronavirus,
money we have.
this is, exactly. I think we just have to be
And it's
clear
still
when we talk,
coming in
and we have
every
to be
month.
clear when we talk about it. We have to,
Right.
yeah, clear when we talk about it though, because, so the citizens understand too.
Yeah.
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 Okay. So does that give you enough stuff to Jeff about amount and where we're talking about coming from?
$125,000 put towards new capital projects, mostly for planning.
Yes.
Right.
All for planning,
That's
pretty
right.
much, right? It's all planning.
I guess all.
I know.
I don't know about the, I don't know.
Solar
what the-
panels.
Oh, yeah, the solar panels. I just wanted to, do we want to, you said you were going to get it on November's agenda, but can we?
It's what Laura sent us, just
Oh, yeah.
pull it back.
Okay.
All the other counties around us are taxing residential solar panel, are including them in the value.
In the
let's say that.
Increasing the value of the home.
Increasing the value of the home.
Right.
We are not counting it right now in the value of the home.
Oh, I misinterpreted it. I thought they wanted to tax it as a separate item.
No,
No, and that's part of the.
it's like when they get a building permit for it now, the permit goes over to Laura, but she doesn't tax the property.
Right.
I didn't realize, well, if it increases the value of your home, it's just like building a garage and putting up a fence.
That's the other county's theory.
Or putting a generator in.
I mean,
And
so when you go to sell it, you're saying your house is worth more if you have solar panels.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
she
Oh,
just,
that's-
she can't
that's-
do some,
A no-brainer.
she just can't do it without, she enforces the rules and laws we make. Yeah. So she has information that she sent us about the codes and what it's all looking like. And then, some of the questions we asked offline to be able to talk about in November was actually around the permits. Like, do we know that we're already requiring permits for solar panels? If so, that helps us know that we've got tracking for them. If we're not, let's look at that. I just don't really know enough about how the process is currently working to be able to see how effective it would be.
Permitted this year.
221 installations?
Yep,
Wow.
Panels or installation?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I don't
I
know.
think it's panels, but it could be individual permits, I'm not sure.
Probably panel.
And she had some estimates in that email of approximate value per panel based on what it was counties around us. This is how much they're valuing each panel at.
Yep. Like Nottaway's doing $800.
That's the part that confused me. That's why I thought they were talking about just the panels and not
Yeah.
Panel plus.
per property value.
Added as an addition to the structure itself.
Yeah, it
That
increases the
definitely
value of the
enhances
property.
the value.
Absolutely. Definitely does. A lot of people are doing it. Yeah.
So I think if we kind of have a consensus that we should be taxing it, then in November, we ought to come with an ordinance or whatever it is we need so that we can vote on it and approve it.
And we could review that details and kind of nail it down between now and then, including at the November workshop,
Yes.
so that
And if that's in
We'll
fact,
be ready.
we're ready.
we'll
That feel
definitely
good?
have an idea as to how the other folks are doing it.
Does that feel like what you need? Help us this
I'm thinking-
process wise.
I think if you get the building permit and you're adding value to a property, that it's automatically going to go on your assessment. I think you're going to need, my guess is you're going to need an ordinance
Right.
if you want to exempt it.
Okay, that's,
Okay.
that makes perfect sense.
That makes
So
sense.
we need to instruct Laura whether we're gonna tax it, well, we want her to tax it or not, because she's not taxing it right now.
Can we, for November workshop, because I'm trying to specify workshop, because then if we need to do something, we still have a meeting after it. Can we get something well-written then between I'm thinking Richard and Laura that says, this is how things are working today. This is, like you said, it then is included already for taxing, but just not being taxed, but just kind of still have something really clear to.
If it's increasing property value, how is she not taxing it? Because they're only looking at the whole
Because
number.
That was a good question.
it's not included in the list of, like we tax generators, but not solar panels. I don't know why.
Like when the appraiser comes out, I guess.
Well, I think that's why the ordinance
Assessor.
I mean, the assessor, they would not.
I think that's why we need to look at the facts of like, does the ordinance say only these things can be added to the value of your property? Or does it say these are examples of things? That's going to influence whether you need an ordinance or you just say it's already falls there.
What-
We know the fact.
What things can you add to your property that isn't taxed that increases value currently? Is there,
Solar panels,
there isn't anything.
I think it was 4 or 6
So I don't-
solar panels to his home and yeah, he gets his water from.
Right.
And it, city of Petersburg increased his taxation on it,
Mhm,
of the structure in general.
mhm.
So here's the value that was,
Yeah.
that they added to that house is doing the assessment, reassessed based upon the addition of the panels.
Yeah.
And so
I think
I think what she needs to know is if we're gonna tax it, what's the rate?
what's the rate?
How
That's,
does
I
she
guess that's
assess
where
it?
we are
And
But there won't be a rate because it'll just be part of your property
on
value.
the property.
I think generators, there's separate.
It's only real estate and personal property. It's got to be one or the other.
Yeah, so maybe generators are personal property. I don't know. I don't know the details. But I would just like to get it all ironed out and ready to do whatever we're
I
gonna
mean,
do.
they're bolted to the house. That's just real estate.
The answer to those questions are what I think we need to start with documenting the facts for us now.
And they are definitely permanently attached.
Until we really have the facts, we understand the problem, we don't know the details. Until we know the
Do you have
details,
the facts for next week's meeting?
I can ask Richard.
otherwise they can be sent to us offline too. I mean, you can send facts to us out. Obviously, we can't make a decision except during a meeting, but you can send us facts in advance to prep us so that we can be productive in
Facts say we
December.
need an ordinance, then next Wednesday we could instruct Taylor to get an ordinance done for November.
Agreed.
If we don't have the facts by next week, we formally can't instruct him to go do it.
Correct.
And then we don't really have to reinvent the wheels because there are some localities that we don't.
Right. Well, it's very controversial in some of the other ones too.
Oh, I know. So, you know.
I don't want to.
So here too, if you think about, if people have already, maybe this is something else to consider, people already installed them thinking they weren't going to, it all depends on how the ordinance is, like the current tax code is written. I think that's why we've got to figure out. If it always said they should be taxed, well, then we're just doing what it always said. If it didn't, then I think we have to be very intentional about, are you going backward because those people didn't know at the time, or are you only intending forward? Which I personally would lean more towards that because otherwise it just doesn't feel very fair.
Grandfather and the other was in.
Yeah, which I don't love, but I also don't, I hate to tax somebody on something they didn't expect to be taxed
I
on.
would tell you grandfather men, but then the taxation, if they had to change them out.
Oh, then that would be different, yeah.
that'd be-
I don't know, I'm confused because if they're already increasing your property value, it's like you put up a carport. You can't not tax it.
Or whatever, yeah.
So I'm wondering if they're asking for like a specific separate tax on these things, which I'm not in favor of.
No, I don't think that's it. I really don't. I think-
But it doesn't make, like anybody that's already put them up, their property value's already increased. So we're already taxing them.
Well, assuming the assessor that went out,
Only if the assessor is being instructed
Exactly.
Right.
to include that.
Yeah, well, that was my question.
What Laura, she actually stopped me yesterday and talked to me about this again to remind
They
me.
have a checklist of
She's
what
saying
they,
no one's being instructed to assess it nor tax it.
So just add it to the checklist of items.
Maybe as simple as we have to do that in writing. I don't know. Pulling her into the equation is important too, because she's the one that's requesting it.
I had a feeling that if they looked at your house and looked at my house, it was the same house, and you had solar panels and I didn't, that when the assessor comes out to look at house for taxation purposes, he will tax mine a little bit differently, lower than it would.
I mean, that's what
I would think so.
That's what I would.
You know, that's where you are, and that's where I am also.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe we should just.
I agree.
Clarify.
I don't really know why we're in this,
So
where we are, but
we just simply need to know, exactly how that's accomplished.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we just need some clarification on it.
What else was on? Oh, Hindel, but did you cover Hindel with the other one? You don't, that's the new.
Yeah, just a feasibility study.
Okay.
Laura's available for a call if we want to call her and pick her brain. I can put her on speakerphone.
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe she can explain the difference if she don't mind.
No, she doesn't. She wants this resolved.
Yeah, if it's just like, if the assessors have a checklist, I guess you just add it to the checklist.
I don't mind her calling it. I personally want it in writing though, because
Well, we have to get it in writing.
I don't just mean the ordinance. I mean, to be clear, I mean the whole situation.
I'm hearing you.
Hello,
What's up?
you need to answer some questions for us on the solar panels.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you've got, just to be clear, Laura, you've got the board, Taylor, and two citizens in the workshop here. Thank you for taking our call a little randomly. We're talking about the residential solar panel assessment and taxation. We just want to make sure we all understand it correctly right now. So let me see if I can walk through the questions. I think the first one is, we would assume that when someone's going through and doing a reassessment, that solar panels increase the value of their home. Therefore, we would have thought the assessor would naturally increase that, and then that would be reflected in their assessment and therefore taxed. That appears not to be correct. Can you help us start there with why that's not kind of the standard practice already?
Sure. Solar panels can be specifically exempted by a local governing body. So the only way the assessment company would be picking them up is if we were advising them that we were taxing them, because they're not aware of what our ordinances are or are not when they come in. They were supposed to have picked them up this year. I had a conversation with the assessor, and it looks like about 2 houses out of probably 20 that got permits for them this year were actually picked up. Now, we haven't gotten permits, the prior permits for 2020, I have not gotten a copy of them, and I did not ask for them. This kind of came about when surrounding localities started discussing, are we going to exempt these or are we going to tax them?
Okay, so I think the next question we had was, what do the ordinances currently say? So we're trying to figure out, do we need, you said nothing?
Yeah. So if you were going to exempt it, you would put an ordinance in like the farm machinery.
Okay, that's where we're going, is if we take no action, then it should, then the process has to change a little bit, but it should just, it would get picked up. Like, it's not like the ordinance is written to say only these things can count towards the improved value of your home. And we don't have to be specific about what can count.
Correct.
So when you get a permit and it has a value on it, you would just increase the assessment of the home by that amount.
The amount on the permit includes labor and stuff to install. So that's where a couple of months ago, Nottaway was asking us what we were going to put per panel. So that's how all of the localities are charging them, if they are, is they're doing a per panel charge. So I would just need to know when somebody gets a permit, like, are you going to put 17 panels or are you going to put 30?
So who determines the amount per panel? You, or do you need something from us to do that?
No, I don't need anything from you to do that. It's under my discretion to fall in line. So I was just going to fall in line with what surrounding counties were doing.
So all you need to know is whether we want to exempt them or not.
Yes, because I didn't want to go ahead and put them on and then you turn around and exempt them and we have to refund people
Yeah.
something I've just charged them.
Yeah. So if we decide, if we decide not to add this to a future meeting agenda, then that gives you that direction, right? We don't plan to make a change.
Okay. I don't think.
Sean, as you had, I understand you have to head out and it's reasonable. Do you have a request for this to be added to an agenda?
Me?
No, we're just trying.
We're only concerned if they were taxed separately.
Right.
They're not going to be.
So you see no need to make it. Okay.
No, not at all.
Okay. Sorry, we're trying to just look around the room, make sure everybody's clear. Laura.
All right, so there's no plans to tax them. I mean, I'm sorry, to exempt them. It's getting late. Yeah,
Right.
no
We
plan.
will make no change. We do not plan to call a meeting, discussion, et cetera. Therefore, no plan to change. You proceed as normal.
Okay, cool. I'll do that.
Thank you for taking the call so late.
Yes.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Bye-bye, you too.
Okay, well,
That cleared the room.
we're dropping like flies.
They got the medical, they got.
I heard.
They have a medical emergency?
Yeah,
Or Taylor?
Well,
they need it.
we're recorded. Let's just,
Oh,
it's not a,
oh, yeah, we need to adjourn before, because I need to turn that off.
And anything else?
Well, I guess no closed session.
not with Sean later.
Yeah.
Then I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
All right.
Thank
Need a
you.
motion or just
Need a motion to adjourn.
so moved?
Got a motion. Further discussion. All in favor, let me know that you said about.
Aye.
You got it?
I guess the.
Stop the record too,
reason some
right there, yeah.
localities are exempting, so it's just